Ever feel like it's almost impossible to react differently to the things or the people around you in your life, or even your own internal emotional experiences with more intention and more thought? Well, today we're going to be talking about how to shift from a habitual reaction to an intentional response in this video. So if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, turn on the bell to be notified every time I upload a new video that is going to help you improve your mental health and emotional well-being and deepen that internal confidence. After working as a therapist and a coach for several years now, I know the importance of learning how to shift out of the habits that are going on unconsciously that create more chaos in your life, to starting to live from a place where you feel so much more empowered and embodied and proud of how you're navigating different triggers, different experiences with the people that you love and with yourself. All right, so first let's just unpack really quickly what is the difference between a reaction and a response. So when we are reacting to someone or something, we tend to be living and behaving from our subconscious, from what feels habitual, from the ways that we have learned to keep ourselves in a sense of perceived safety or familiarity, right? This can be when we are getting more defensive, or we're living from the stories or the internal dialogue that we are used to running, right, around that repetitive loop in our minds. Versus responding is when we are more so living from an intentional choice. We are being present enough with ourselves and whatever the trigger might be, or whatever's going on around us, or who is around us, that we are intentionally tuning in, checking in, and then deciding how we want to engage with said person or said thing or ourselves. And understandably, this might feel really challenging to make that shift, because on some level, what we're doing is working, whether or not it's actually what you want to be choosing. Yeah? Fair? So the first thing that we want to do when we are shifting and starting this practice of going from reacting habitually to responding intentionally is practicing the pause. So what I mean by that is there are a couple of ways that you want to tune into this. The first of which is to start to recognize, or maybe sit down with your journal or whatever it might be, and think about what are the people or scenarios or environments where you are more susceptible to being emotionally triggered. Maybe there are specific people in your life, like parents or specific friends or specific people that you work with, that you find really challenging. Maybe it is yourself when you feel like you've done something wrong, right? And that automatically starts the internal dialogue of beating yourself up and criticizing yourself, and you react in that way internally, which we know doesn't actually support us in the long term, yeah? So tuning into what does that experience feel like in your body? So maybe you notice your heart starts beating really quickly, or maybe you notice that you feel a lot of tension building up or heat building up. These are some of the normal responses that your body might have, and utilizing your physiological response to help you recognize when something is being triggered can be a really, really great pathway for you to know, oh, okay, there's that physical experience again. Let me try practicing the pause. And then once you have paused, what I want to encourage you to do is to ask some helpful questions of yourself and practice powerful questioning. So might there be any stories or assumptions that you have created in your mind, because our mind just likes to have reasons for everything so that we can file it away really quickly, really neatly in our minds, that might actually be not true and or unhelpful, right? So really starting to question, okay, what am I responding to or reacting to in this moment? Is it the actual situation that's coming up right now and what maybe was just said to me or what happened? Or am I responding or reacting to the story that I have attached to what I'm making that mean about myself, the other person, or this experience? And it might be one or the other, or a little bit of both. But taking the time to really question that, and then think about who and how do you want to be in the world, and coming back to that big picture to help you Then make an intentional choice about how you want to respond, right? So pulling back then, once you've noticed the emotional trigger, you've noticed the emotional experience, you're taking time to take that pause, you're questioning what am I reacting to right now? How much truth is there to that? And then you're coming back to, okay, based on what's happening right here, right now, who and how do I want to be? What part of you is maybe reacting from the old habits or something happened in the past or a way of being that is more familiar but is not something that you want to keep choosing, right? And we can extend all of the compassion for that because on some level it's kept you safe, it's kept you alive, it's kept you here, right? So you don't need to berate yourself for that, but we just want to observe it. And then if you can tune into the version of you or the part of you that is actively being more intentional and choosing how to respond in these hard moments or when these triggers happen, if you let that version of you guide the way forward, what comes next? Right? Maybe that looks like taking space from whatever the trigger might be and giving yourself time to actually process that and be with it. Maybe that looks like communicating a need or setting a boundary and being able to do that in a way that is really firm and empowering and potentially compassionate and loving, depending on the situation. Right? Maybe it is a reworking of the story that you're noticing is popping up once again for you here, and allowing yourself to process through that and kind of truth check it a little bit. If this is resonating with you, hit that like button. And I want to know, what area of your life do you maybe find it the most challenging to step into this space of responding rather than reacting? Maybe it's at work with specific coworkers. Maybe it is with your parents and your family. Maybe it's with specific friends. Or maybe it's with yourself, right? Drop it below in the comments. I really want to hear from you and know where and how you see this showing up in your life. Okay, so 2 more powerful things to think about in your journey of shifting from reaction to response. The first of which is to validate and acknowledge those emotions, right? Again, so we've already tuned into your physical experience, but now I want you to think about how can you process those emotions, because we don't want to get in the habit of pushing them down or invalidating them, especially in the beginning when you're working on making this shift. So how can you give them somewhere to live? How can you give them somewhere to be aired out outside of you where you can really detach from them and see them from a different perspective? So maybe this looks like grabbing your journal and writing out what's coming up for you. Maybe this looks like going for a walk and doing a little movement as medicine and really utilizing that to think through, process through, feel through what's coming up for you, right? But how can you give your emotions somewhere to live in a way that's healthfully allowing you to process through that rather than just letting it live inside you and create this fire or add to the fuel that you have about this potential trigger or reaction or response? And then last but not least is to remind yourself that this is a practice, and the expectation is not that after watching this video or setting this as an intention, you are going to perfectly respond all of the time with so much thought and intention. Right? That's just not realistic. Unlearning habits and patterns that have been habituated and repeated internally and externally over and over and over and over again is going to take some time to learn to do it differently. So as much as you can, giving yourself space to remind yourself that you're not having to be perfect here and that you can take the time that you need to really start to learn a new way of being is going to help you in continuing to practice in the long term rather than giving it 1 or 2 tries and then being like, I suck at this, I'm never gonna get it, I can't figure it out. So again, coming back to this is a practice, be kind to yourself along the way. Perfection is never, ever, ever the goal when we are here chatting together in our space. Right, my loves. So if you are sitting here thinking like, yeah, Chelsea, that all sounds all well and good and sounds great, but I don't actually really understand this whole concept of pausing or slowing down enough to check in with myself, I want to invite you to download my free 5-step calibration practice where I really walk you through tangible ways to start checking in with yourself on the reg. And when you check in with yourself and learn how to cater to your own needs in a moment when you are not triggered, it's going to be even easier to utilize that muscle and call on that skill set when you are triggered. So go ahead and download that freebie. The link is below. And if you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe to my channel so that you can get notified when there are lots of more goodies coming out about supporting your mental health and emotional well-being in a realistic, tangible way. All right, I'll talk to you soon, my loves.